I met today's guest in the summer of 2010. Alethea Felton was working as an instructional coach for the District of Columbia Public Schools, and I had started working there as a professional development specialist assigned to work with her and her school. We worked together for over a year before I moved on to a position at the state superintendent's office, but we continued to keep in touch. As we saw each other through various stages of our personal and professional lives, I was honored when Alethea reached out to me one day and asked me if I would be her coach to help her navigate her mid career journey. In today's client success story, you will hear Alethea Felton's career journey that saw her retire from a 20-year career in education and what led her to explore different career options that ultimately led to her transformative career move. Let's get started. Hello, my friends. This is the Mid-Career GPS podcast, and I'm your host, John Nerrell. I help mid-career professionals find a job they love or love the job they have using my proven four-step formula. I'm beyond excited to share my conversation with Alethea Felton with you today. I mean, after all, it is not every day when your former direct report turned friend turned client gets to share their career story to help people like you navigate your mid-career journey. So let me tell you a few things about her. Alethea Felton is a certified high-performance transformational coach, founder of Alethea Felton Coaching, LLC, and the host of the Power Transformation podcast. With over 20 years of experience as an award-winning educator, instructional designer, and learning and development specialist, Alethea now empowers ambitious professionals and leaders to overcome challenges through mindset mastery, unlock their full potential, and achieve ongoing holistic life success. Alethea's journey into coaching was inspired by her own transformative experience of healing and growth beyond physical challenges. As a sought-after speaker and writer, Alethea shares her expertise and has been featured on various platforms and also serves as a freelance consultant and workshop facilitator at the HR Source, a leading firm that provides HR staffing and management solutions to the human resources community. Additionally, Alethea provides editing, copy editing, and proofreading services to business owners, writers, and others in need of improving the overall quality and style of their writing. Alethea's story is nothing short of a power transformation, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with my dear friend, Alethea Felton. My dear friend, Alethea Felton, welcome to the podcast. I am honored to have you here today.
John, it is a joy being here on your podcast. I feel like I am being interviewed by a celebrity, so thank you.
Oh, you make me laugh. Thank you so much. All right, look, I've shared a bunch in the intro about our past and our history and everything, and this is just truly an opportunity to share your client success story with everybody today. And so normally I start off these conversations, Alethea, with, like, what's your mid-career moment? And
Mm.
what I want you to share with everybody today is what was the point when you realized at mid-career that something had to change? And that essentially is what brought us to working together.
Wow. Okay. So the pivotal point for me that brought me to mid-career is that I had gotten my certification at the time as a holistic health coach. And the abbreviated version of that is that stemmed from my having a history of autoimmune illness since birth, a lot of close calls, brushes with death. And I wanted to learn more about how my body worked. And I wanted to look more at health beyond simply what I ate. So I wanted to go into coaching for myself based off of the fact that I had a health coach. And so I wanted to really understand the ins and outs of business coaching and how to eventually shift and leave my career as a public school educator. What led me to ultimately working with you is that I was working with a prior coach, but I think it's really important for people to find a coach that's going to be the right fit for them. This coach was a pretty big name coach. This was someone I knew through other people, but I felt stagnant and I was not growing with working with that coach. Our personalities just didn't fit. So this person ended up shifting. They actually ended up having a baby and had to postpone all of their clients. And it was a way for me to kind of have an out in the interim. So during that time period, I really sought God and I prayed and I said, I really need a new coach, someone who's going to get me to that next level. And from my meditation and prayer, I knew in my heart that God was guiding me to you.
Mhm.
And I was hesitant about it because of our past history of you being a supervisor, and although we had become friendly, I still didn't know if you were going to be comfortable coaching me from that prior role. But I knew you were one of the best supervisors I ever had in my life. And during that time, when I was an instructional coach, the way and the method you coached me helped me understand more about myself. So therefore, when I knew that you shifted into full-time entrepreneurship, I said, John is the perfect fit, and the rest is history.
Well, I thank you for explaining all of that. And I want to pause for a minute because it was a really powerful conversation you and I had about what working together was going to look like, because you came into that call with some very specific goals, as all of my clients do. But because we had prior working experience together, like you said, we were friendly, we were keeping in
Mhm.
touch a little bit, that it was important we didn't let that overshadow or cloud the coaching relationship. And it was one of those things that we both showed up in that way to be like, okay, look, this is business. This is business to truly help you. And so it's not that you can't be friendly with your coach, or a friendship may evolve, but it is about business. And it's one of the things I truly appreciated about our working relationship was that we set those ground rules and we honored them throughout the several years
Mhm.
that we worked together off and on. But Alethea, you and I are previous classroom teachers and educational supervisors and educators. And, here we are. We're at the beginning of April. There probably are teachers who are listening to this conversation thinking that they want to get out of the profession for a variety of reasons. And what would you say to someone like that who is thinking, gosh, I don't think my career path is going to end up the way I initially expected it to. And while I love what I was doing, case in point teaching, I feel like I need to make a pivot. What would you tell them at this point?
I would tell them if they are really considering making a pivot, plan for the pivot. And what I mean by that is I would discourage a person from leaving hastily or without some type of a plan in place or cushion. So, in other words, when I knew it was time for me to pivot, my experience was a little different. As you know, I'm a very spiritual person. And so, this pivot for me was really what I consider a God move, where I knew God had been speaking to me about it. And I knew it was time for me to make preparations. However, everyone might not necessarily have my same background or faith or even have that. But I still think that the message is the same, is that even if you're prompted spiritually or not, when I say plan for that pivot, number one, look at your finances. Really see, is this going to be able to be something that you can financially do for yourself. So in my case, what I did was the year before I made that pivot, I looked into what I had in savings. I looked into what it would be if I withdrew all of my pension, since I had years vested in that particular state. I really looked to see, okay, what's going to be my next step? Am I pivoting with a next in mind? So I started very early on. I started looking for other positions. I knew I didn't want to work for a school system anymore. So I looked for other roles that I would be qualified for. Now, you and I know how that turned out for me, where I
Hmm.
was overqualified for things and I didn't get another full-time job, and I still don't. But I did network, network, network. You taught me how to do that, where I was able to get more information from different experts in fields that I was interested in. And I was able to connect with people who could connect me with some contract work and some part-time work. So plan for that pivot to make sure that you're just not leaving because you're disgruntled. And I think that you set it up well. You are talking about people who know, okay, I like what I'm doing. I may even love it, but it's time for a change. So plan for it. Talk to people, get your finances in order. And also, I'm an unmarried woman. And that was a huge difference for me. And I don't have children. So I didn't have to ask my husband if I could shift. But look at your situation. But the biggest thing financially, make sure you have some cushion, because the bills won't stop even when you shift and leave your job.
I thank you for walking us through that, especially, and for sharing everything that you did, because it does give a great context into your situation. And when we were building your mid career GPS, part of that, and it's such a foundational part to building a mid career GPS, was we worked really hard at getting you clarity. Yeah,
Yes.
clarity in terms of what your exit plan was going to be and what was going to be next. Can you recall and share with us, like, what was one of those pivotal points in our coaching conversations where you felt like things got clearer and your direction or your decision making to step out of your role and pursue the opportunities that you are doing? Can you share a little bit with us about what that clarity felt like?
So I'm not trying to be vague when I say this, and tell me if you want me to be a little more specific. But what comes to mind, even to this day, in April, and I left my career July of 2023, and now we're in April of 2024. I always felt consistent peace. I felt no worry. I felt no anxiety. I felt no regret in terms of, oh my gosh, I made a mistake. John, not once have I had that feeling. Even when I knew October of 2022 that I would be closing out my school year, from October 2022, when I spoke to my supervisor and she kept it private the whole school year, all the way until now, April of 2024, I've felt peace. So that may seem kind of general, but I never had the experience of, oh man, I made a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
or oh, I shouldn't have done it. That's when I knew that this was the right thing to do and what I was supposed to do. That is really the honest answer. It wasn't some type of pivotal or aha or any specific thing. It's just been a consistent piece in knowing that I made the right choice.
Well, and that's what clarity does,
Yeah.
right? When we're clear about the decisions that we make, whether they be personal or professional, when we
Hmm.
have that clarity, that doesn't mean we don't get frustrated or disappointed,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I remember we had conversations when you were kind of moving along in a job interview process and everything, and then
Hmm.
got notified that you weren't the selected candidate. We had to sit with that disappointment, right?
Uh-huh.
That didn't change the
Yeah.
clarity, but we had to acknowledge, like, look, this still sucks,
Yep.
right? You
Hmm.
get along in the job process and you're like, okay, maybe this is going to be it. Maybe this is the thing, but it's your clarity. And I'll also share with everybody, your faith is a huge part of who you are and how you show up. But your faith also gives you that resolve and the tenacity to keep going forward because, as you said, this is what I'm called to do.
It does. And my mindset. I am very huge on the mind. And when it comes to my faith, I identify as a Christian, but even with my faith as a Christian, I believe in the concept of God being in me also, and me sharing God's DNA. And so, therefore, the way that I think about things, I'm not it's not toxic positivity, but it's literally, since I'm already aware that 80% of the human brain's thoughts are innately negative. That's a scientific fact. And that 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. I have done so much work over the years in retraining my brain and my thoughts to really think thoughts that are going to be affirming, elevating, and life giving. And that, in conjunction with my faith and belief in the impossible being possible, has helped me go and has kept that clarity.
Yeah. No, that's so well said, and I appreciate that so much. And for people who are listening for the first time or they've been listening for a while, I typically don't talk a lot about my religious background or my faith. I was raised
Mm-hmm.
Catholic. I believe in Christ, a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things that you and I would talk about a little bit from time to time, just in terms of how, your faith is such a driving factor in your
Mm-hmm.
decisions. And I
Mm-hmm.
know, you enough to know that that is what grounds you in so many ways. That's one of the things I love about you, that you are so
Thank you.
centered and grounded in that way. So, we're dropping this episode in April. We're talking about a month before that. So tell
Mm-hmm.
us a little bit about where you are right now on your professional journey, especially after leaving your teaching position in July of last year.
Wow. Okay. So since leaving my position, and I ended my career, just for some background, I ended my career working in human resources. So I was able to experience that human resources world that I actually love. I love HR. And what I was doing was I was observing, coaching, and pretty much evaluating teachers who were either new teachers or some veteran teachers who were on the cusp of possibly losing their jobs. That was the reality of what I did. Although I didn't make the final determination of hiring and firing, the reports I wrote had to be presented to a 20 to 22 person panel that made those ultimate decisions. So my data really influenced that person's outcome. I share that background because it was the hardest, most challenging position I'd ever had in my career, yet I loved it and I still ended my career on top.
Hey there. Have you ever been hesitant to like a LinkedIn post about finding a new job because you're fearful of being seen by your employer or colleague? I get it. I see you, my friend. Since you're already listening to this podcast, I want to help you get an even bigger win in your career. And to do that, I'm inviting you to join my free email community and subscribe to the Mid Career GPS newsletter. It's delivered to your inbox twice each week with helpful tips, strategies, and resources to help you find that job you love or love the job you have. It's all free, and you can subscribe by visiting my website at johnnerrell.com. Check the show notes or my LinkedIn. For now, let's get back to the episode.
So since then, professionally, I'll be quite frank about it. Those first several months, I pretty much just relaxed and enjoyed the fruits of my labor. Because although I left after a 20-year career, I just say straight up that I retired early. I started my career at 21, ended it at 41. I'm 42 now. And so I spent those first several months traveling. The first week of school that students were back in the classroom, I went on a solo cruise and I did not feel 1 ounce of guilt about it. I
Heck no.
absolutely loved it. I traveled solo on a cruise, a week-long cruise, and it was the most liberating experience I'd ever had in my life. Then a couple of months later, I went on a 2-week vacation with my sister and 3 friends, went to South Africa and saw the entire country of South Africa. And during that time also, I continued working on my podcast and I was still actively applying for full-time positions. However, when I started doing that more, I had a few interviews and I didn't get those jobs. I had one of the hiring managers flat out tell me, she said, I probably won't be able to match your salary. And she told me off of the record that would be the only reason why I wouldn't get the job. But she wished me all the best. I'm still connected with her on LinkedIn, everything like that. So there came a point close to the new year where, like John said earlier, I was very discouraged by another situation where the hiring manager I did find out, not the person I'm talking about, but another one pretty much lied about why she didn't hire me. And I found out. And that was very discouraging because it was untrue. And John, you really coached me and helped me through that. And I had to make a decision as to if I wanted to really concentrate on a full-time job or put my whole heart into full-time entrepreneurship, as you had been coaching me on for years. So where I am professionally now is I am taking some courses that will continue helping me with my branding and my building of my business because my niche has shifted some and I'm evolving more into the area and the space and the place where I'm coaching. So that's what I'm doing now is I'm doing a lot of building and branding of my business. I'm also continuing to elevate my podcast, getting in excellent quality guests, making sure that builds traction. I've been working on a book for quite a while, and I'm so thankful that that is almost finished. And I am on a track towards public speaking as well. So everything I'm doing, John, and I credit you with this because I didn't see how it was going to come together. You told me, John, at the end of last year, you envisioned for me that the first quarter of 2024 would really be about doing everything towards building my business and brand professionally. I didn't know at the time how I was going to do it, but ladies and gentlemen, those of you listening, John spoke it into my life, and that's what's happening. And that's where I am right now is I don't have a full-time job, but I do contract work for an HR firm where I'm a consultant and I do some workshops and I'm really focusing on building my empire, so to
Yeah.
speak. That's where I am.
Well,
Mhm.
and in working with you to build that mid-career GPS, let's take a
Mhm.
knowledge that we built in this time, right? Your situation and your circumstances and everything. It goes without saying that after a 20-year career in education and all the incredible things that you did and the milestones you achieved, taking that time off was important for you, both from a health perspective,
Hmm.
both physically and mentally, just in terms of regrouping and recharging, to set you up to accelerate with all the things that you're doing now. You know,
Yes, that's
I have
true.
clients where they're moving into a new job, and I will often ask them if they want to take any time off before they start that next corporate job or whatever. Some don't want to for a variety of reasons, one of them primarily being financial. They're like, I just want to
Hmm.
keep going. And others are like, well, can I negotiate that? Absolutely. You can
Hmm.
negotiate a start date. I am a huge advocate though, and I've seen this with my clients and also with myself too, but that having a little bit of time to separate and break before you go into something new
Hmm.
can be extremely healthy and beneficial in that. So I
And
think,
can I just comment briefly? My doctors would agree with that
mm,
because my doctors, knowing my health past, and I'm thriving now, but once some of your listeners learn more about me, they will understand why I say that. But every doctor I've had, from my naturopathic to my GI to my liver specialist, they all were thrilled at the fact that I traveled, that I took time for me, that I'm creating my own schedule because I needed it just not for the physical aspects, but for the mental
mm,
benefits as well. And it
yeah.
helped tremendously.
Alethea, I want to circle back on something you shared previously about when you were interviewing for positions. And you shared with us that you got feedback that the reason why you weren't being selected was that they couldn't match your salary. So you and I had done some coaching around what was the non-negotiable when it came to your income and your salary. And we set up certain filters, if you will, about, what would be a yes, no, or a consideration. What I want people to lean into here is that you were able to get that feedback because of the relationship, the professional relationship that you built with that hiring manager throughout the process. That included with you networking and how you were connecting with them, the follow
Mm-hmm.
up conversations that you were having. Not everybody gets that. And we've talked before on the podcast here that people don't always get feedback from interviews for legal reasons, right? And so when you were able to get that type of feedback and hear it and receive it, what was your thoughts about getting that feedback and any type of decisions at that point about that job, that individual, where you
Mm-hmm.
were headed? Can you share with us a little bit about what thoughts came into your head, um, knowing that the quote unquote, the only reason why you weren't moving forward was
Mm-hmm.
because of your salary requirement?
It proved my worth. I knew my worth. That's what it proved to me. And that is something that John, you've tried to get me to see for a while. Even recently, something that I hadn't shared with you is in a program that I'm a part of. Some of us are already entrepreneurs. And one of my classmates who I had a one-on-one with asked me, she said, how much were you thinking about charging for your clients, this, that, and the other, or even just for freelance work? And I told her, and she said, that's really not enough. And she's a successful entrepreneur. Then I had a strategy planning session with someone else. And when I told that person that, she said, oh, no, 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 no. This is what will have you charged in your packages, blah, blah, blah. And so going back to your initial question, that made me know my worth because let me explain, listeners, also. And what I'm going to say is no disrespect to educators. I am not going to act as if I'm not so far removed. I have to be grateful for my history. But in the field of education, we are in a bubble, and that is the honest truth. And our salaries are set, And I worked for a district that's really one of the highest paid in the country. So I was not a broke, quote unquote, educator, right? But what I found was making a pivot, how much more I was really worth shifting and transitioning out into private sector or otherwise. And so getting that feedback really made me know, wow, I have what they're looking for. But based on what the job description was, they were interviewing everybody from those who only had associates. And I don't want to say only had as if it's not good enough, but people from associates all the way to beyond. So I already was applying for a position where I technically was a bit overqualified, yet I met all of the expectations of the job.
Yeah.
hmm It was life changing for me. It really was like, And that's when all of these doors kept closing. And my mom said, I'm going to mess up the saying, but it's an old school saying about hanging your shingles out or something like that. About it's pretty much trying to say use the gifts and the talents you have to just go ahead and pursue entrepreneurship full time, what you're supposed to do. Because I'm not a new entrepreneur. It's just that for 20 years, I had dabbled and I had done certain things part time. So this is the first time I'm doing it full out, full out.
You host the Power Transformation podcast.
I
What's your
do.
power? What is your power transformation?
My power transformation is I have and continue to overcome obstacles and challenges that were literally supposed to paralyze me or stop me altogether. And I chose to be resilient, determined, and wholehearted with my pursuit of just not my dreams and my goals, but also sharing and teaching others how to do the same. That's what my power transformation is that I have defied and continue to defy so many odds because as long as I have breath, as long as I am still here on earth, my work is not done.
Amen. Amen.
John, can I say one last comment, kind of going back to
Yeah,
what
sure.
it taught me? Something else that I want to emphasize, and if you already had this question planned, my apologies. But part of this pivot and journey for me too has been the power of networking.
Mhm.
And John has been the one, yes, I'm talking about him in third person right now because I want listeners to hear this. John was really the one who taught me the power of effectively networking. I have to admit, when he started coaching me on it last April, I was petrified. That was the right word. I was petrified. I was annoyed. I was frustrated because, again, coming from education, I didn't know where to even start with networking with people really outside of my field. And now it comes second nature to me. And I've been telling other people and showing other people how to actually do it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
You
That's a
you are
success.
you are welcome. I am so grateful that you shared that because that was a game changer for you. And you what you did was you took the coaching that I gave you and you found a way to create a networking strategy for you that was doable, authentic, and genuine. And I have been continuing to follow you and we still continue to talk, but watching you build these relationships has been a personal joy seeing you thrive in that way. So you keep doing you and being you
Thank
and
you.
making those connections. Okay.
Thank you.
All
I
right.
will.
So Alethea, we're going to start wrapping up here. What advice would you give to people who are listening to help them build their mid-career GPS?
hire John. That's what I need to do. So, no, seriously, like, hire John Narrow. Uh, is seriously, that is my first instinct, but okay, I'll be a bit more mature with it, but
But I
I am
appreciate that.
so
Thank you.
serious as to what I said by this. Hire John Narrow, and I'm just not saying that because I am a former client, and some of you may wonder why former. And this is very personal, what I'm going to share, but I think it speaks to his character. Is that John and I had a serious conversation at the end of last year, and John was totally honest with me where, his gifting is that mid-career, all of that, right? I'm going more now into needing um more business coaching with high-end sales coaching, things like that. And John told me, he's still there for me as a mentor, but he said, right now, where you are going, and this is what John believes and sees in me. He says, where you are going right now, you need another coach who can take you pretty much to that next level. So I say all of that to say that he could have hogged it for himself, but he loved me enough to say where you are going and your greatness. I want to let you really spread your wings now. I've kind of given you the runway of that, airport. I've given you the runway, and I even had you take off. But now, for you to really reach the maximum altitude, you got to have somebody else. So I would tell anybody, whether it's John or someone else, find a coach or a mentor. Please invest in coaching for someone with an expert who's going to really give you the tips. Sure, you can Google, you can look at things for yourself, but even my pastor emphasizes the importance of, if you really want to make some moves in your life and successes in your life, take the time and make the investment of paying someone their worth of getting you there. Get references. John, I knew him, but John was humble enough when I started with him. He gave me the info of clients, and I actually reached out to people asking how they liked his coaching. And so, seek out a coach. And another thing, involve your support system, get wise counsel from people that want to see you achieve. Yes, you can make all of the choices on your own, but I think it's often wise to really seek counsel so that you can know the proper steps to take. Just don't do it off of emotions or feelings. Those are going to be there, but you got to think through this process as well so that you don't crash and burn and fall flat on your face. I have continued to elevate despite the difficulties and the detours. I haven't backtracked and I haven't crashed. So I'm steadily climbing. And I think that's because I had a plan, I had a coach, I had a support system, and belief in myself. And you need to do the exact same thing.
Well, thank you for that. I am so grateful and honored that I have had the opportunity to be with your coach over the last few years and everything. I'm going to
Mhm.
diffuse this a little bit with some humor because as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking I need to change the tagline to build your mid-career GPS so you don't crash and burn and fall flat on your face.
Yeah, it's true. It is true, because if not, yikes.
Exactly. Yikes is right.
Yeah.
Um, No, I am so thrilled and proud of you for what you are doing and what you are creating. And there's so many great things that you are putting in place. I can't wait to continue to see what's going to happen. But Alethea, if people want to connect with you, follow
Mhm.
you, learn from you, listen to you, the mic's yours. Tell us where people can find you and connect with you.
Thank you, John. Yes, I am on all social media platforms except X. I am not a part of X, or formerly known as Twitter, but I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. And you can find me under Alethea Felton. That's Aletheafelton. Please connect with me, follow me, message me as well. And from those pages, you will also find my website, which is going through some changes, but it is still live and active. And the Power Transformation Podcast. New episodes are released every Wednesday. It's on all podcast platform apps from Apple, Spotify, every single platform, the Power Transformation Podcast. And although John might not want me to say this, shout out to John Narrell, because John is the one that gave me the idea to start a podcast. I thought he lost his mind. I thought he was insane. And it took me a good year before I launched, but he saw something in me I didn't see. And with John's coaching and just getting me out there, my podcast is now in the top 5% of all podcasts listened to. So please, there is something out there for you. Incredible stories of resilience, determination, and transformation.
Yeah, it's such a great podcast. I invite everybody to listen to. How many episodes are you at right now at the time of this recording?
70.
Okay, remember when you were at like 5 and you were like, I don't know if I can keep doing this or not?
I did, y'all. Look, okay. I'm gonna get a little casual here. When he told me to launch with 5 episodes, I said, huh? And he explained, he said, launch with 3 to 5 so that people can start to get a feel. My podcast has even shifted since then, but the name is perfect. He wanted me to choose a name that no one else had and a name that could be flexible. So it's grown. But he's right. I did not understand him saying do a weekly podcast because I had no idea how that would happen. And y'all, I have episodes now that are batched through the next few months. So it is.
Yeah. You're a pro now.
Out.
You're an expert at this. This is good.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Alethea, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I'm honored that you came on to do a client success episode here. When you and I were talking about this, I've been blessed and honored to work with a lot of people. And not everyone is comfortable coming on and sharing their story, in part because of where they work or who they work for, or they just don't want to come on the mic and share. And I completely respect that. But whenever I have a client who is willing to come on and tell a little bit about their success in building their mid-career GPS, I appreciate it so much. But as I shared at the beginning of this episode in the introduction, you never know who you are going to meet. And who would have thought that almost 14 years ago, when we were working together at the District of Columbia Public Schools, that you and I would have this moment in front of these microphones, recording over Zoom.
Yes.
And all the work that we've been able to do. My life is better because I know you. I am proud of you. I love you. Keep up the great work. Thanks for being a guest today on the Mid-Career GPS podcast.
Thank you, John, for having me. And you're right, you never know. And so that's why, audience, believe in the power of your dreams and have hope in the best. You never know how well your story can turn out.
Yeah. So, my friends, if there's one takeaway I want you to have from my conversation with Alethea Felton today, it's what she talked about when she was going through her career transition and what she took away from one of her interviews. And what she shared with us is, it proved my worth. Whether you are happy in your job or not, I want you to take some time this week and think about where your worth and your value is being proven each and every day in the work that you're doing. If it's not, if you're feeling stuck, frustrated, unhappy in your job, maybe it's time we start building a mid-career GPS. And if so, reach out to me. Let's have an introductory conversation. And perhaps you may be coming on as another client success story. But more importantly, remember this. You will build your mid-career GPS 1 mile or 1 step at a time, and how you show up matters. Make it a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening to the Mid-Career GPS podcast. Make sure to follow on your favorite listening platform. And if you have a moment, I'd love to hear your comments on Apple Podcasts. Visit johnnerrell.com for more information about how I can help you build your mid-career GPS, or how I can help you and your organization with your next workshop or public speaking event. Don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn and follow me on social at John Nerrell Coaching. I look forward to being back with you next week. Until then, take care, and remember, how we show up matters.